Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh to Dr. Zaherawati, Binti Zakaria and all examiners. My research title is Factors that Influence Unemployment Among Fresh Graduates in Sungai, Petani, Kedah. So first, let's move on to the background of study. Unemployment was a situation in which a person who was looking for a job has yet to be employed. According to International Labour Organization, the employment rate among youth was almost twice as high as among adults. The fact that the ratio of young employment rate to adult level of unemployment had not moved globally over the past few years serves as an example of how disadvantageous of young people would be in the labour market. Meanwhile, in England, the employment figure for fresh graduates aged around 21 to 30 reached 6.3% in 2020, after falling steadily over nearly 10 years from a high of 6.5% in 2012 during the Alliance government austerity campaign. According to United Kingdom Department for Education, stated that in between year of 2007 and 2020, there was compared to the working age population show that employment rates for the youth had been slightly higher. This could imply that shifting economic structural conditions had a detrimental impact on youth people employment. It is supported by the US Bureau of Labor Statistics in 2022. The employment rates was lowered in 13 states and Territory of Colombia in April 2022 and stable in other 37 states. Next, I'll be explaining problem statement. Looking at Malaysia content, according to Department of Statistics Malaysia official portal in 2021, they had stated that in 2020 that Malaysia had been hit with pandemic COVID-19 until recently. Due to this pandemic, statistics show that the rate of job loss and this also led to the numerous fresh graduates suffering for unemployment in Malaysia. Therefore, fresh graduates needed to compete among unemployed people who lost their work during the pandemic, and the competition for a job among graduates was becoming more difficult. According to an article published by the Age Market, Department of Statistics Malaysia Chief Statistic Officer Datuk Seri Dr. Muhammad Uzair Mahidin stated that the number of unemployed graduates in Malaysia surged by 22.5% to 400 in 2020. Up from 165 to 100 in 2019. The greater number was due to the negative economic situation in 2020 as well as the implication of the sluggish market situation in the general. The rise in number of graduates throughout time reflect the growing idea of the value of higher education in improving living standards. In addition, based on the Ministry of Education, Malaysia graduated after 1 year of graduation, 6% of graduates still remain unemployed. As a result, fresh graduates no longer got employed in the labour market even after they graduated, whereby they needed to compete in the job market with another applicant with higher technical and soft skills. Lastly, Malaysia former Higher Education Minister Datuk Seri Dr. NURULAINI stated that in 2020, there had been a 25% unemployment rate among fresh graduates in Malaysia. She also added that 75,000 out of 300,000 of fresh graduates would not be employed during the COVID-19 pandemic because of the economic recession. During COVID-19 pandemic circumstances, fresh graduates needed to compete with others. The research question is aimed at what is used factors that influence the unemployment among fresh graduates, the relationship between education performance, job mismatch, employability skills, and attitude to unemployment among fresh graduates in Sungai, Petani, Kedah. First research question is, what is the intent of unemployment among fresh graduates in Sungai, Petani, Kedah? Second, what is the relationship between the education performance and employment among fresh graduates in Sungai, Petani, Kedah? Third, what is the relationship between the job mismatch and unemployment among fresh graduates in Sungai, Petani, Kedah? Fourth, what the relationship between the unemployability skill and unemployment among fresh graduates in Sungai, Petani, Kedah? And lastly, what is the relationship between the attitude and unemployment among fresh graduates in Sungai, Petani, Kedah? Whereby research objective is focusing on determining the factor that influence the intent of unemployment among fresh graduates to know the relationship between educational performance, job mismatch, employability skill, and attitude to unemployment among fresh graduates in Sungai, Petani, Kedah. These are my research objectives to know the intent of unemployment among fresh graduates in Sungai, Petani, Kedah. Second, to identify the relationship between the educational performance and employment among fresh graduates in Sungai, Petani, Kedah. Third, to study the relationship between the job mismatch and unemployment among fresh graduates in Sungai, Petani, Kedah. Fourth, to determine the relationship between the employability skill and unemployment among fresh graduates in Sungai, Petani, Kedah. Lastly, to determine the relationship between the employability skill and employment among fresh graduates in Sungai, Petani, Kedah. This conceptual framework is designed to provide a better understanding on which independent variables have significant correlation with unemployment among fresh graduates. Independent variables are education performance, job mismatch, employability skill, and attitude. The factor of unemployment among fresh graduates in Sungai Petani Kedah acts as dependent variables. Moving on to the research methodology, I use quantitative research design, which was defined as the procedure of gathering and evaluating numerical data by rubric in 2018. It was typically used to identify trend, average, prediction, as well as causal relationship between the variables used in the study, as a primary method for gathering primary data and applied research, because it allows me to select the sample and the type of question have been conducted. Level of analysis in my research is individual who was credited with any qualification from public university, private university, polytechnic, community college living in Sungai Petani Kedah. The sample size used in this study was 100 unemployed fresh graduates who live in Sungai Petani Kedah. The study goal was to use the cluster sampling technique. In cluster sampling, a population was divided into clusters, which was smaller group. They can choose the sample at random from this cluster. Moving on to the data measurement. There are 6 sections in data measurement, namely Section A, demographic question, Section B, unemployment question, Section C, unemployability skill, Section D, attitude, Section E, working experience, and Section F, high demand. The method of data collected in this study had been conducted via an online survey utilizing Google Form, which has been distributed to the respondent via social media and messaging apps, such as WhatsApp and Telegrams. The descriptive statistics used mean and standard deviation have been performed in analyzed in SPSS in order to closely estimate the factors that affect unemployment among fresh graduates. Additionally, the Pearson correlation has been utilized to estimate the relationship between education performance, job mismatch, employability skill, and attitude with unemployment among recent graduates. Finally, multiple regression analysis have been conducted to identify the significant factors that affect the unemployment problem among fresh graduates. First research objective is to know the intent of unemployment among fresh graduates in Sungai Petani Kedah. Based on the statement above, the findings indicate that the respondents are strongly agree they can access everything easily at the fingertip with a mean response of 4.25. This demonstrates that the respondents are strongly agree with everything can be searched through the fingertip, including searching for a job. The finding revealed that there is a positive relationship between the education performance and employment among fresh graduates. Thus, the alternate hypothesis was supported because the analysis showed that there is a strong relationship between both dependent and independent variables. Third RO is to identify the relationship between job mismatch and unemployment among fresh graduates in Sungai Petani Kedah. According to the study finding, there is a strong relationship between job mismatch and unemployment among fresh graduates with a value of R equal to 0.546, P equal less than 0.001. The finding revealed that there is a positive relationship between job mismatch and unemployment among fresh graduates in Sungai Petani Kedah. Thus, the alternate hypothesis was supported because job mismatch do influence the unemployment among fresh graduates in Sungai Petani. Fourth RO is to identify the relationship between unemployability skill and the employment among fresh graduates in Sungai Petani Kedah. The result in finding for this study revealed that there is a significant positive relationship between the employability skill and unemployment among fresh graduates. R equal to 0.594, meanwhile P equal to less than 0.001. This finding revealed that there is a positive relationship between the education performance and employment among fresh graduates. Thus, the alternate hypothesis was supported because the analysis showed that there is a strong relationship between both dependent and independent variables. And lastly, to identify the relationship between attitude and employment among fresh graduates in Sungai Petani Kedah. According to the study finding, there is a strong correlation between attitudes and unemployment among fresh graduates, which R equal to 0.491 and P equal to less than 0.001. This shows a strong relationship. The attitude of fresh graduates by demanding higher pay, incentive, and benefit affect unemployment among fresh graduates. Therefore, the alternate hypothesis is spotted that there is a relationship between attitude and unemployment among fresh graduates. My recommendation for future research to be highlighted for improvement by increasing the number of sample size of the respondent. During this research, I only gathered and collect the data from 100 respondents in Sungai Petani Kedah. Because of the significant number of respondents included in this study, it is reasonable to generalize the factor that lead to the unemployment of fresh graduates to be more accurate. It would be reasonable to include other districts in Kedah on the future research. Although the study relevant finding, it must be acknowledged that this empirical investigation has a few flaws. First, only the Sungai Petani Kedah region is focused by the finding. Very areas of respondents have different opinions and level of understanding regarding a particular issue. Thus, it is necessary to do a study on the factors that lead to the percentage of unemployment in order to develop this study even further. This is because the respondent want to know why the unemployment rate is rising. In conclusion, this study was conducted to intent of unemployment among fresh graduates in Sungai, Petani, Kedah. As a result, this study fulfilled all of its objectives, including determining the level of unemployment among fresh graduates in Sungai, Petani, Kedah, identify the connection between job mismatch, deficiency in education performance, lack of employability skills, and credit attitudes, and researching the correlation between unemployment and fresh graduates. Thank you. That's all from me.